Hey everybody, this is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. Welcome to another edition of the college football show we like to do for Hater Radio. My co-host is Ian Gibson. Ian, how are you?
Doing good, man.
Hey, so let's just get into it. It's a big week, a lot of really big games. Actually, you know what I wanted to do, because we haven't really done this yet, but it seems like a good time to do it, is breaking down the conference. Hey, I just got word that the strike is over. My friend Richard from 728 commented, "That's great. That's awesome. I love to hear that stuff because I'm definitely ready to get back to work. But not to work way too long. But hey, Richard has some actually insight about UCLA that we'll get into. But I wanted to do this real quick about some of the conference standings. Ian, I looked at some of them, and there's some that are like completely bogged down, where it's like Big 12, there's like 6 teams, there's 7 teams in contention. What's wild is Iowa State at 5-4 overall record has a very slim shot, but a shot at getting to the conference championship game in the Big 12. And because they hold the tiebreaker over Oklahoma State, and but their last games are Texas, Kansas State, and BYU. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that is such a tough task to try to beat 2 of those teams, let alone all 3. So I don't envision that. So that Big 12 is wide open at this point. You got a really good Kansas State team, you got a really good Kansas team, you got a really good Oklahoma team. And we'll talk about this West Virginia team in a little bit too. This West Virginia team that's like, all right, they're ready to play and they're definitely capable of taking on these big teams. So we'll see there. I guess the only other thing I wanted to talk about was maybe the Pac-12, but we've talked about it all year. I mean, I've been such a huge proponent of the Pac-12. If you look at just everywhere in that conference, from UCLA, which is still out, very slim shot, but like they're 6-3, 3-3 in the conference. Then you have Arizona at 4-2 in the conference, Utah, Oregon State, USC, Oregon. All those teams have a legitimate shot at getting there, and that's amazing. And they're all very good teams. I would, Oregon State, Utah, UCLA all have really good defenses. Oregon's got a really good defense. Washington, it is good, but it's not great. So all these teams are probably top, like with that top like 6 teams, they're just an overall better teams than I would say the top 6 out of any other conference. Now, obviously, the lower end of the conference is not as good. I mean, Washington State's not bad, and Colorado is frisky offensively, but I don't know. Maybe Pac-12 is the conference of the year. I've been saying it all year, and I'm just gonna like keep rolling with it because it just makes the most sense, though. Any of your thoughts on conference wise? Anything sticking out to you that your conference race wise?
So for me, the biggest one right now of the Power 5 is definitely kind of expected is the Big 12. Because of how wide open, again, it is. You have a bunch of tiebreakers with Texas, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and even Kansas is still in the mix, and West Virginia, and Iowa State. So that's a bunch of teams right there. I think as well, the other kind of surprise is just teams like in the ACC, like Louisville, likely will be the one facing, for given their schedule, is in the driver's seat to face Florida State ever since they went away with the divisions. The Big 12 is definitely the most entertaining, I shall say, because every week each of those top teams can knock each other off. But especially the Pac-12. I mean, if they're going out, the Pac-12 is going out with a bang. Washington. It is hilarious that the last year of the conference, has probably the best, like, before you have Oregon and nobody else really, or maybe SC, maybe Washington in 2016, but no real competition against that. But now it's completely, Washington, Oregon, and Utah. I could make arguments that they could easily find themselves um, knocking each other off again when they play each other.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, for sure. And like, I mean, it is. I mean, top to the core teams of the Pac-12 right now, I would hold them up against anybody in the entire country. And like especially the Washington, Oregons, like those two could compete again. They could play anybody. They could play Georgia, they could play Alabama, they could play Michigan, they could play Ohio State, they could play Florida State. The rest of those guys, I think, are really competitive as well and would put a scare in some of them. Offensively, especially USC is one of the best in the country. And then Oregon State is a very, frisky team, like I like to say, especially that Arizona team. Both those teams are very strong. My buddy Keith, he says Washington will be in the college football playoff. And yeah, that's what I'm saying right now, Keith. I hope you're listening. Yeah. So the rest of those teams, I like Arizona. Yeah, and Richard's saying it as well. Most competitive Pac-12 season, and I've enjoyed this, and I try to be, because most of the followers of Hater Radio on the Twitter account are Gator and USF fans. So I've tried to I retweet stuff and talk about as much as I can. And there are some that do say it, but like there's not enough, because it's like if you really are a big fan of college football, you need to be watching these teams, because it is some of the best football out there right now in college football, and it's a joy to watch. I mean, there've been it seems like every week there's a huge matchup in the Pac-12. Like it's been all the games Utah has had, USC's had like 2 or 3 lately. And they've got this one coming up, and it's just like every week is just a slugfest. I mean, that Oregon Washington game is by far the best game we've had all year, and maybe the best game that we've had in the last couple of years. Like that's how good of a game that was. And I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time.
the
Yeah, go
only
ahead.
other thing I wanted to talk about conferences wise, so
Yeah.
we're all hearing about, of course, I'm noticing this, James Madison. We all
Yes.
know
Yeah.
they
That's what I
can't.
was waiting. I was teeing that up for you. I wanted you to
Yeah.
talk about it.
James Madison, undefeated, and we know the whole hoopla about them can't play in a bowl game. The NCAA won't allow it because they were going from FBS or FCS to
FCS,
FBS status, which by the bylaws you are not allowed to, join a bowl for that 2-year transition period. This being their second year.
Yeah.
Also, part of that, because of the Sun Belt agreeing to that, despite James Madison being undefeated and leading the Eastern Division, they will not be able to play unless something happens in the conference championship. So as of right now, Coastal Carolina leads the East Division in the Sun Belt to play again right now. If it ended, to play Troy.
Yeah.
So then they've sent a request to the NCAA about cutting that back and letting James Madison attend a bowl. We're going to have a very interesting thing if that doesn't happen. Even the Sun Belt doesn't allow James Madison to play. That's going to be. We talked about asterisks and stuff for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
You got to really think about that. If James Madison doesn't play for the Sun Belt Conference, doesn't even play for the conference championship, I don't know how you could legitimately say whatever team wins that was the best one.
Well,
Because
I will counter that with Ian. I don't know if you remember. I know you're a good historian of college football, but 93 Auburn, 93 or 94 Auburn was on suspension from the NCAA, and they weren't allowed. I don't even think they were allowed on TV. They went undefeated. They couldn't play for the SEC championship. So it was Alabama against Florida. I think again. I think it was like 3 years in a row that Alabama played Florida.
it was.
Yeah, and So Auburn, an undefeated team that beat Alabama, that should have been there in Atlanta, wasn't allowed to go and didn't even get to play for a bowl game. And trust me, I get it. The NCAA is a governing body that is had a lot of issues for its eternity. Like the entire existence of this body has been plagued with issues, and it sucks because it really ruins the fairness of certain things. I mean, right now, I know we haven't talked too much about the Michigan sign stealing stuff, and you know what? I don't really want to talk about it because it's like it's all out there in the news, and like if you really want to hear about it, you can find it if you want. Richard's saying, do you think this season is the best college football season ever? It could be, Richard.
It's up there.
But I think if we had a 12-team playoff, it would have been definitely the best season ever. So we'll have to wait till next year. And it sucks because there is a ton of quarterback talent, and it's going to be one of the most loaded quarterback drafts coming up. He's saying, Keith saying, what are your thoughts on Oregon and Washington? Yeah, I mean, at this point, I really think that's the possibility, especially because it's going to be tough for Washington because they have 2 tough games with Oregon State. No, not Oregon State. They have is it Oregon State? And they have Utah.
Yeah,
they have Utah.
They play Oregon State at the end of the year.
Yeah, they have Oregon State and Utah, and it's going to be tough. You know, they have Washington State as well. I think they should win that easily. But if they go 1-1, they get in. So I think Washington is more likely than Oregon. Oh yeah, and if they're going to split the series, that's what's even crazier. If they go 1-1, who gets to go? Who says who's the better team? You know, like how is that fair? Dude, like this is why we should have done the 12-team playoff sooner. But
that's what I said from the beginning when they went to like, hey, we're doing a play. Because again, when the BCS, it was like, okay, we're gonna have 2 teams. I'm like, okay, well now it's getting to the point where that's not enough. So then they're like, okay, we're going to a playoff, and I thought like, oh, cool, 6, 8, no, 4. It's Power 5. How are you gonna do that?
I know.
And then sure enough, we got this, and like the first year, Baylor and TCU couldn't, they got snubbed.
True. They were in a very similar predicament. At that time, I think it was only one team, a 1-game decision there in the head-to-head. It wasn't 2 games, which that's what's even crazier is the fact that if Oregon and Washington do play against each other in the Pac-12 championship, there's a chance that there will be 2 games against these teams. And how do you dictate if it's split evenly, with one being on the home game for Washington, and then he keeps saying run the 12-team playoff. Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. At this point, we're all wanting it, and it is actualizing in front of our eyes right now, where we're seeing what the possibilities of it can be. And I think when it gets to next year, people are going to be blown away the fact that teams like, West Virginia and Iowa State at like a 6-3 record at this point of the year, if they run the table at that point, have a shot at getting to the playoff. And that's what people are going to be really happy about. Yeah, Richard's saying Pac-12 champion will go. Yeah, I guarantee, Richard, that it's going to be a Pac-12 champion will go, especially if they both continue to Oregon and Washington can maintain their level of play the rest of the year. But it's just if both can go, that's what will be crazy to decide who goes out of the 2. If it's a split 1-1, which I don't know how you decide that. It's like a Solomon's choice at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it. I thank you guys, Richard and Keith, for coming up with questions and talking, because we're definitely appreciate that. So the games we have, okay, let me get my light show going. So we got USC and Oregon, talking about Oregon, and there's Joe, my buddy Joe, saying go Knowles. There you go. I'm really intrigued about what's going to happen with this USC team, because it's like they lost to Utah, they lost to Washington, and they were competitive in both of those games, and they probably should have beaten Utah. The Washington game, they weren't as competitive near the end. Washington really took it to them with their running back Johnson and just, ran down their throats. And, they fired Alex Grinch. We talked about that on Sunday. And thank goodness, because he was such a dead weight on the program. It was every week, I'm sure, Lincoln Riley just heard questions about, hey, you need to fire this guy. You need to fire this guy. You need to fire this guy. And
Did you hear that joke about it? It said, instead of like how the Grinch stole Christmas, it said how the Grinch stole $1.8 million.
Yeah, for real, man. Like, dude, he was just stealing money, and he's been stealing money for like 5 years with Lincoln. I don't get, man. I know you work with people close and you get a closer relationship with people. I understand that. It's very tough to cut out the personal and the fact that you're running a business, but you are running a top tier program and you need to make decisions that are cutthroat, that have to be, you have to cut emotion out of it. You got to be like, hey, this isn't working, so I'm going to fire you. And that just has to be it. He waited way too long. If he had fired him in the offseason, it would have been a completely different story. I mean, look at UCLA, and I know Richard knows this with Lynn. He is such an amazing defensive coordinator. That kid's going to be a head coach some point soon. And, Richard brought it up, if the hot seat is true with Chip Kelly, maybe Lynn is the guy that replaces him. But as of right now, I just want to get back to USC real quick, but I'll talk about that UCLA stuff in a little bit. But I think USC can compete offensively in this game. I think they're going to be able to score enough points. I think they're going to be able to put a scare into Oregon. But I like Oregon's defense to make enough plays that will stop them. And also, the mismatch really is Oregon's offense against USC's defense right now, because USC's defense is reeling. Even if it is another assistant coach that's taking the place of Alex Grinch, how much better can they be? I don't know. It's still going to be probably pretty bad. There's a lot of talent on that USC defense. It's just been completely schematic-wise terrible, and it's going to need a wholesale change, and it'll probably take until an off-season program of getting the spring and everything else to be able to change that. But I think Oregon wins this game. I'm going to say Oregon wins like 45 to like 32. What do you got, Ian?
So looking back at last week, you saw, Washington with one of the most elite offenses in the country light up the scoreboard. It was like Truman's troops going up and down, up and down. Like every time they had the ball, they scored.
Yeah.
People need to know this, though. Washington, did I say Oregon? Washington has, against USC, Washington has the number 2 best offense in the Pac-12 and the number 4th overall in the country. Who's number 1? Oregon. Oregon has the number 1 offense in the Pac-12 and number 2 in the whole country behind LSU. Yikes. That defense is reeling. It's sputtering. And I understand putting an assistant in will kind of calm it, kind of like hockey when you put the backup goalie in and kind of gives the team a boost. Yeah. But, it's not – there's just way too much talent on Oregon not to exploit the defensive side. For much of this season, USC has been getting by based purely just on talent alone.
Yeah.
This one, there's no excuse. Oregon just right now has the better overall team compared to USC, who may have the better offense, but I don't see them getting the ball enough to score. If the only way USC wins this game is that USC literally has to score every time they get the ball and hope maybe the defense gets a stop or two. If there's any monkey wrench thrown in, it's going to be the Ducks game. I'm going to go Oregon winning this one. I'll go 35-21.
Okay, so you don't think that USC is going to score that much in this game?
I don't think they're going to have enough time to. I think Oregon, again, that's the whole thing. We've seen that as their kryptonite. They clearly know USC's offense is their only way they're going to win games. If Dan Lane's smart, he's just going to, tell Bo Nix, hey, hand it off a few times and, make those high percentage passes, which he is money in those slant routes. So I just think they're going to, eat up so much clock that they're not going to give SC enough time. They're going to be very meticulous on how to beat USC.
All right, there you go. Okay. The next game I've got is the USF Temple game, and I'm bringing it up because wear green Wednesday. Ian's got his shirt as well, so I bring this one up first because this one's very important for USF's chance of getting to a bowl game. They're 4-5 right now. They need at least probably to win the 2 games. There's a chance that there's some 5-7 teams that could get in to bowl games this year, but I don't think USF would be one of them. So, I mean, their offense is intriguing. So it's like maybe that's why someone would want to take a chance on USF. But either way, if they get to 6-6, they're bowl eligible, and that would pretty much definitively put them in a bowl game. So, this Temple team is not very good. I know I've been hearing all day, last couple of days, about Byron Brown, UCF fans talking about him, potentially going over there. And then JP Peterson in Tampa, the sports guy there, saying stuff about, USF needs to do a bunch to keep him in. And, granted, Byram is amazing. He's like top 10 in a ton of categories. Like I think all around offense, he's number 6, like total yardage in the country, which is huge. I mean, he can run the ball more effective than probably any other running back in the country, maybe outside of maybe Jaden Daniels. And then passing wise, he's just getting better and better every week. I think with more talent infused, this USF team will take it to another step the next couple of years. Like you mentioned last week, Ian, with the recruiting, that USF is tops in the AAC right now. And that's huge because, you got to get more of that coming in. I think Byron Brown stays. He sounds like he wants to stay. What I've tried to tell people is the difference from this year and to next year is the fact that there's 8 more playoff spots. So every single team has a legitimate shot at getting into the tournament next year. So now where it's like, oh, it's just 4 and really it's only like 6 teams that actually have a shot at the playoff. Next year, it opens up the door. So with that being said, Byron Brown can stay at USF. He's comfortable there. They can make a push, in the next couple of years to try to get towards that spot. All they have to do is run the table in the AAC and they have a real shot at getting into the playoff. So it's not that unrealistic. Alex Golish already has them at 4-5 this year. If they get to 6-6, that's a huge turnaround already from 1-11 last year. You probably know more about this Temple team. I don't know too much. I just know that they haven't been doing quite well all year. So I'm just going to give my prediction and then I'll hear yours. So I'm going to go with the offense has been moving quite well all season long, except for outside the FAU game and the UAB game. So I'm going to say USF scores like 42, and I'm going to say Temple scores like 28. What do you got?
Yeah, for this one, surprisingly, Temple's off as not well as they've done. The quarterback play has actually been very impressive. EJ Warner actually has over 2,000 yards and he has 16 touchdowns for comparison. Byron Brown has 17 total passing touchdowns. So that's actually, he's done his part of the end. His main target, David Martin Robinson, the tight end, very solid. Somebody they're going to have to pay attention to. Temple, it's very old school style. They're going to look to the tight ends. They're going to look to, get, the passing game more, close in blocks. For USF, and this is the thing that always has been scaring me. The defense is, it is really the anchor right now. Because I tell you what, you score 50 points in a game or 40, 35 points in these games, you should win.
Yeah.
But USF, I know they're like 13th in the American and near the bottom defensively. So the thing is that Temple, I know they ranked 11th in total offense in the AAC. So it's very important for the defense to step up and make the stops when they can. That is critical because what Temple's going to do is nickel and dime it, try to get it to like third and manageable. That's what they're best at, and keep the drive alive, and more importantly, keep the ball away. We've seen a lot of teams do that this year, especially against USF.
Yeah.
So it is critical to USF to make it like 3rd and 7, 9, maybe force them backwards to make it really tough for them, and focus the attack on the tight ends and get pressure in the in Warner's face. Because the offense, I do believe, will be it's been an engine. It's gonna do what it can. Temple's defense has been good, not great. I feel like USF has played better defenses and has scored more. So I feel like I honestly think it might be closer than it has to be. I will say from watching practice this week, this team, the coaches, especially Golich, for stressing, like, it is like imperative. You have to win these games. So all the attention, all the focus and concentration, they aren't letting any distractions. They're solely concentrating on these last 3 games because they want that bowl game bad. So I think with that being said, they need to limit mistakes, no penalties, no turnovers, play a clean game. And if you do that, I think they beat Temple. I think they're going to edge them out. I think this is going to be a lot closer than some may think, but I'm going to go with let's go like 30-24 win for the Bulls.
Yeah, but okay, so I don't know, with this USF's offense the last couple of weeks, I mean, no one's really been able to stop them. They've really only stopped themselves. It really has been like, failing to get convert third downs, and running wise, Naquan Wright is tearing them up, and like I said, Byram as well. And so I just feel that they're going to continue this trend. They've been one of the best offenses in the country because they can, move the ball all over the field. And I think they're going to be able to do that in this game as well. I don't see Temple being able to stop them. That's just my opinion. Okay, let's move on to let's do UCLA real quick, because I wanted Richard to hear this, because I wanted to bring up what he sent me earlier today. So it looks like what is it? The quarterback situation is getting really dicey with UCLA. So Garbers is still limping. Moore is limited because of a concussion on Saturday, which I didn't realize that happened to him. And then Schlee is still hurt from the Oregon State game. The only really healthy quarterbacks that they have is Chase Griffin and Justin Martin. And Richard thinks that Chase Griffin could be the possibility here. I think he played earlier this year. I can't remember for sure. But also he talked about Chip Kelly might be on the hot seat. I don't know, Richard. I've liked what Chip Kelly has done so far at UCLA. I think because of the fact that UCLA is always considered the secondary program in LA, which it's tough to say that, but it is the reality when it comes to football. Definitely not so in basketball, because that's, UCLA is king in basketball. But as far as football, it's tough because it's like you can't get the same type of recruits that you can get at USC. So it's a little bit of an uphill battle, but I think you have to take this year with almost like a grain of salt. You had a quarterback that was there for 5 years in DTR, and he did really well, especially that last year where they had a potential chance to get into the Pac-12 championship and faltered a little bit, but they were right there. They barely lost to USC. They had some shots there. So this UCLA team, I feel, is right there defensively, especially. I know we've talked about Lynn. Lynn is a stud coordinator, and if he stays there another year, that defense should be just as strong next year. And then also offensively, I like what they do offensively. I like their running attack. I like what Dante Moore brings, and he's still young. Like, he is a true freshman. He's only 18 years old. So it's like, you know what? True freshmen are going to make mistakes. If he was a junior or a redshirt sophomore, a lot of those mistakes this year would have been cut out, and he would have been doing a lot better. And they'd probably finish like 10-2. But he's not a redshirt sophomore. He's only a true freshman. So there's going to be mistakes. I like the future for this UCLA team, and I don't think firing Chip Kelly is gonna help that future. I know the natives are restless, and the pitchforks are going to come out, especially if they lose another couple of games here at the end of the year. But I think just taking this year is like, hey, realize what you have, and that next year is going to be that step into 10 wins. And like I said, 12-team playoff completely changes the game, because then you're fighting for a playoff shot. So that's a completely different story. So to this game with Arizona State, it is, this Arizona State team has been one of those teams that loves to do the trick plays and loves to pull shenanigans because they're not as talented as the rest of those teams. Scattaboo, the jackknife, the like Utila knife running back who can do almost anything. He does like fake punts. He does all kinds of stuff. I mean, they've really pulled every trick out possible, and it worked pretty well against USC. But you saw it last week when they went up against Utah.
No, they weren't buying that shit crap.
None of it works. And I think UCLA is gonna, they have the defense to really snuff out those trick plays. So I think they can hold them to like at most 17, 20 points. And Arizona State's defense is not very good, so they should be able to score a decent amount. And I'm saying anywhere from like 28 to 35, but I'll probably say on the low end just to be sure. So I'm going to say like 28-17 is the score I've got for that one. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I will mention too, the only times SC has, or Lord, the only times Arizona State has really been in these games have been against very inferior defenses. Colorado, Washington, USC, and Cal. Not the high end, not like top 50 defenses. UCLA is like 13th in the whole country in total defense. I feel like they're going to be like Utah. They're going to snuff that out real quick. And I'll give Arizona State credit. They're going to do everything they can to pull off the upset, but I just don't see UCLA getting fooled on that one. I think they put it, they distanced themselves early, and I think the Bruins win. I'm going to go with like a 30-10 win.
Yeah, and Richard just posted that Garbers and Moore did practice today, but unknown who will start. So it's still a mystery. I really love Carson Steele no matter what. So if you just run the ball on this team, which I hope that they do, and hope that Carson, holds on to the ball. He fumbled twice against Colorado. So if he holds on to the ball and they just run him like 20 times, they should win this game relatively easily. Okay. Moving on to another depressing topic. The Florida Gators. My buddy Joe goes, what did he say? Bring back Zook, because he's a Florida State fan.
Are you sure about that? You remember the last game Zook played against Florida State?
I know, which is funny. Ron Zook Field. But no, he's talking about the Florida State's going to spank him. But, the game is in Gainesville, and Florida's offense has, like, besides that Georgia game, Florida's offense has been better and better as we've gone on. So I don't know about that, because Florida State's defense is not very good. So, I think that Florida does have, out of the next 3 games, I think they're the best shot for Florida to win, even though it sounds contradictory. I think Florida's best shot is the game against the Seminoles, just because it's at home and it's a rivalry game. And, I don't know. I like their chances in that game. I've liked it all year. And the way the team is playing, like we said, it was a field goal is the difference in that game on Saturday in the Arkansas game. So they're not that far off. But as far as everything else, I just saw the depth chart just got released for Florida, and Devin Moore is the starting corner over Jalen Kimber, which he struggled last week. He gave up that huge play that resulted in, I believe, a field goal. And, Devin Moore is deservingly getting playing time, and he definitely deserves it. And, it's right now, I think the issues was, specifically Shamar James being out. So they had to figure out what linebackers are going to Richard's saying, I agree, Florida for the win. Thank you, Richard. But Shamar James being out, so they had to figure out where they were going to go linebacker wise. They had Scooby doing some other things, Scooby Williams, and then Nunnery was in there as well. And then Richardson came in some of the first playing time he's been getting. Derek Wingo's in there too. I think with Shamar being out, it's a huge hole. And I think because Scooby would do some of the stuff that, that Shamar didn't do. And so it's now Scooby taking over Shamar's role a little bit. So they're just trying to figure out where their roles are. So obviously there was some stuff going on in that game where you wish, they had made some plays, especially against KJ Jefferson, where if they made plays, they may have gotten off the field, especially that last drive. I know I rewatched the game last night because it was on, and, there's like 6 minutes left. They're up by 3, and it was like a 3rd and 6. And, they two guys converge. I think it was Scooby and Princely, and they just couldn't get to him. And it's like, man, if they just got to him, that game might have gone differently. So with that, the defense is figuring some stuff out. Tyreek Sapp is back, and I believe Cam Jackson is back too. So, that should be full bore there. Really, the only missing piece now is like I said, Shamar. So he's out for the rest of the year. Hopefully they can figure that stuff out. Offensively wise, I think they're doing well there. I think they're putting things together. They just kind of fell off in the middle quarters, the second and third. So they need to figure that out more about keeping the offensive pressure on. Because if they score even just once more in those second and third quarters, they probably win that game against Arkansas. And they just couldn't figure out a lot of things there. And it's just frustrating because they get a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of, get a first down, and then the drive stalls. There hasn't been as many penalties, which has been good. That's a huge change there. It's been seemingly less and less penalties, except for that special teams penalty. But let's talk about LSU a little bit. So LSU, as of right now, Jaden Daniels, I haven't heard if he will play, but it sounds like he will. He was practicing. I think I heard he was running like 20 miles an hour when they tested him speed wise. So it looks like he'll probably play. Their offense with Neighbors is definitely one of the best in the country. I think you said it as second best, Ian, and it's definitely, they're going to put up points regardless of what happens on defense for Florida. I just hope that they can make enough stops in this game. They just have to make I'd say 3 or 4 stops in the game, and that gives them a chance to win. It's going to be tough because the LSU offense is really prolific, and they're going to put up a lot of points. They're going to march down the field. Inside the red zone is where they struggle a little bit. If they can take advantage of that, maybe bend don't break type stuff, and let them make some field goals instead of touchdowns. Maybe there's a better chance there. I feel like if they can, the schematic stuff has been there. Like, they just need to make the plays. If they can get those tackle for losses, get those sacks, get those drive killer plays to come forward, I think they really can make a difference there. Offensive wise, LSU's defense is not very good. And I know Harold Perkins is a stud, but the rest of the team has been struggling mightily. Almost every game they allow a ton of points. You know, and I think that continues here in this game. I think Florida can score at least 32. But I'm thinking like LSU probably scores like 35, 38. So I'm going to go with 38-32 LSU. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, for me, it's broken down like this. Recently, since the Georgia game, the Florida's defense has regressed very badly. And this actually includes the South Carolina game in which they won. 3 games in a row, they have given up over 480 yards on defense. And they have not held a team below 30 points since the Vanderbilt game. So 4 weeks in a row, a team has scored more than 30 points and has gained almost 500 yards on the defense. They're not getting the stops that they were at the beginning of the year. They're not forcing, not good coverage, not, letting them off the hook on third downs. Penalties, especially, have been a problem. Added to the fact, too, LSU is the number 1 defense in the SEC. So they gave up over 30 points and over almost 500 yards to the worst offense in the SEC in Arkansas. Bit of a deceiving one because KJ Jefferson and that team is so good, but still not good schematics and not good, look here. For this one, I just don't see the defense being able to stop this offense. I just don't. I think maybe they'll get a few, but to counter that, I don't know if the offense can be on the field enough to keep, driving down the field. Let's not forget, like after the first drive against Arkansas and Georgia, it took a while until like the late third, fourth quarter before the offense could really get rolling. I think what's going to happen is LSU might just pull away from it early, and Florida might mount a comeback late, but I just don't see it. The other thing to note here, knowing my history, it is a night game in Baton Rouge. The last time Florida beat LSU in Death Valley at night was 2009, and that was Tim Tebow's last year.
13-3, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
the concussion game or the game after the concussion game.
He was still the touchdown pass he threw, I think it was to Riley Cooper. That ball was like freaking wobbly. I was like, Timmy's still not 100% here.
Well, the attention that game got is probably one of the reasons why. I mean, they were like moving towards concussion protocols, but like that game, the where he got injured in the Kentucky game, and then the next game being the LSU game, all the attention that was put on the fact that he had that concussion was a lot of scrutiny and a lot of discussion and then a lot of push towards safety, towards helping these players. And as much as it was difficult to watch, it was a very good thing that all of that discussion came about so that we can protect these players and not see them get hurt, when it's definitely a huge issue for their health after football as well. Okay, so moving on. So we have these other games coming up. We've got Virginia, Louisville tomorrow night. Interesting game. This Louisville team has a lot to play for. I don't think they would get into the playoff. There would have to be a ton of things go their way for that to be a reality. But they have a real shot at getting to the ACC championship game and are more than likely going to, because they only have this game and the Miami game after it as far as conference play left. So they have a real shot. I think they just have to win this Virginia game or one of the two, either beat Virginia or beat Miami, and they get in. So it gives them kind of a little bit of a runway here. I think they're better than this Virginia team. This Virginia team has beaten a few teams, surprisingly. I think they beat North Carolina, right?
They did.
Yeah. So, like, they have surprised teams, but I think this Louisville team, well, and I will say, I'll counter that with the fact that Louisville lost to Pitt, who Pitt is 2-7 currently. So maybe there is a chance here. I don't think so. The game is in Louisville. I think Louisville wins probably like 34 to like 17. What do you got?
Yeah, I think Louisville is going to be able to jump out here. I just don't see the Virginia offense being able to keep up with this game. So I'm going to go Louisville winning. I'll go like 31-7.
Okay, next game is Michigan Penn State. Keith was saying upset coming up for Penn State. Michigan lose because of all the distractions. See, I don't know. I don't know if there's enough to get this Michigan team off their game, because if that would have been the case, I think it would have already happened in one of the other games that they've played. And I think they've already proven that they are a quality team. I will say they haven't played anybody, so that's helped immensely. But this is their first real test. This is the first ranked team they've played all year, and this is 11 weeks into the season, which is crazy that they've gone this far, 10 games into this the season, and they haven't played anyone ranked. I mean, that's how bad the Big Ten teams have been, and that's how bad their non-conference schedule was. I just feel like Michigan's going to win this one. I have no faith in this Penn State team. Alar is not anything that moves the needle for me. He's just kind of a whatever quarterback. I kind of just, they put a lot of hype behind him, but I mean, when has there been a good Penn State quarterback, like ever? Like, I mean, you could go back to maybe Kerry Collins in the 90s, and he did all right because he led the Giants to the Super Bowl, but there's never really been a really good Penn State quarterback the last 30 years. Like my lifetime, I've never seen one. So, and I'm not just generalizing here, I'm just saying the reality. But as far as Alar and him specifically, I haven't seen it. He looked very pedestrian against Ohio State up until the last drive, which Ohio State was basically giving him the short throws so that he could get down the field to waste all the time on the clock. So it was all garbage time touchdown there. Their defense is for real. Penn State, is definitely one of the best defenses in the country. Michigan as well. So it'll definitely be a defensive game, low scoring. I'm going to say like Michigan wins like 21 to like 10, something like that. What do you got?
Yeah, for me with Michigan, I feel like, they know how to win these games, and Penn State has really struggled to win these ranked games. I do say with the offense, I do think Alar has actually been their best quarterback in a long time. The problem is that it's very one dimensional. Um, I don't see, they definitely rely on Alar a lot, but I just don't see there's nothing to complement him. Unlike Michigan, who, has the rushing attack, has Blake Corum to complement McCarthy. I feel like, too, also with the defense, number one in the country with Michigan, they're going to find a way to make it very difficult for Penn State's offense to get the ball moving. I think Michigan wins it in a tough one. I'll go with a 27-14 win for Michigan.
Okay, Alabama, Kentucky. I don't think this Kentucky team can compete with this Alabama team right now. Alabama is probably going to smoke them. I'm going to say Milroe probably puts up at least 4 touchdowns, any combination of on the ground and through the air. So at least 4 there. Alabama's defense is going to stifle this Kentucky offense. Even though Devin Leary's looked better recently, I'm going to say Alabama probably wins like 38 to like 14. What do you got?
So I just don't see Bama slipping up here. I'm going to take Bama winning it. It just comes down to talent. I got Bama winning this one. I'll go with a let's go like 30. I'll go like 34 to 19.
Yeah, it seems like that. Texas Tech, Kansas. I have this game on here because Kansas is still in the mix for the Big 12. This is a huge game for Kansas to stay on pace with the other teams, with Texas and Oklahoma State. They would need Oklahoma State to win or to lose at least another one for Kansas to have a shot, because Oklahoma State has a tiebreaker. I think Kansas can get this win. I like their offense with Bean. I think he's been solid. Texas Tech, I don't know too much of. I know that they've had some decent games. They've played, okay so far this year. I'm going to say Kansas wins this one. I'm going to say Kansas wins like 32 to like 24. What do you got?
I don't know. Kind of a bad feeling with this one. I feel like Kansas is going to like win by the skin of their teeth. I'm going to go Jayhawks winning like 24-21. Very close.
Yeah. Okay. Rivalry game, Miami FSU. This is for you, Joe. I hope you're still watching. So I don't know if Tyler Van Dyke is going to play. I think he presents the best chance for Miami to win is if he does play. I know he's been struggling. I think that FSU at home, I don't think their home crowd is really much of as an advantage as it maybe used to be back in the day, because like Duke played really well, and I don't think Duke was scared of that crowd. I think if Riley Leonard is healthy in that game, I think Duke easily wins that game. And I don't know, man. This FSU defense is probably the reason why I would say that Miami has a chance. But Miami only scored 6 points last week against NC State. And so it's like, what can Miami actually do in this game? I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to keep pace with Florida State's offense. And that's the problem here, because Florida State, and I will say Miami's defense is decent. Like that's probably their saving grace right now, is that their defense has been able to keep them in basically every game, even in their losses. Really only Texas A&M that scored a decent amount of points on them. But I don't know. I don't see them stopping Travis that much, especially if Coleman and what's Johnny Wilson, if they're both healthy. I don't think they're going to be able to stop them. I think Miami loses this one, and I'm going to say Florida State wins like probably 32 to 22. What do you got?
Yeah, it's a rivalry game, so anything can happen. But I just think talent-wise, Florida State has the better talent compared to Miami, and that's honestly what it might come down to. And Florida State just has the better overall team right now. I feel like while Miami might have a good enough defense, I just don't think they have the offense to the same firepower to fight with Florida State. So I think the Seminoles will win this one. So I'm going to go similar score. I'll go like 30-20 for Florida State.
Yeah, it seems like a 2-score game is likely. Okay, Utah, Washington. Utah is a 2-loss team. Washington is undefeated. This is the big game because this could put some separation. I think this almost guarantees Washington a spot in the Pac-12 championship if they win this one. So this is a lot on the line for Washington, and Utah has a slim chance of getting into the Pac-12 race if they can win this one. So it's a lot for both of these teams. I like Washington's offense to score a decent amount of points. I think they can stop Utah enough. And but I really like Utah's defense. And so maybe that might be the difference in this game is Utah can, make some stops to keep them in the game. But I still like Washington no matter what. Penix is just a stud. Again, I know the guys that have been watching tonight, Richard and Keith, they both know about Michael Penix Jr., but I don't know if the country doesn't know about him. And I hope if you watch the show that you do know about this kid, because he is a stud and he's going to go high in the NFL draft. And he should be right now. I think he's the front runner for the Heisman. He had that great play on Saturday where he got free from the D lineman and threw that touchdown pass. And I really think he has a shot. So I think Penix is the difference here because they have better quarterback play. And that'll be the difference because Barnes is solid, but he's nowhere near the level of play that Michael Penix Jr. brings to the table. And especially with the offensive skill players that they have. Adunze is a freak and Gray as well. So they have a lot of studs on offense, and I think they do just enough to win. I'm going to say it's going to be a one-score game. I'll probably say 30 to 24. What do you got?
I agree. I think with this one, though, it's going to play a lot like the Oregon game. Washington has to go in with the expectation that they're not going to score every drive like they did against USC. Utah's defense is too good to have that happen every time. But I feel like they can find enough creases in the armor and find a way to attack, especially in the secondary, to really, get at Utah. The mobility of Penix is what makes him so dangerous, and I think that's really going to be the Achilles heel for Utah is that they're going to have to drop one of their elite linebackers to just be a spy. So for this one, I feel like it's going to be really close. I feel like Utah's defense keeps them into it and can hold the Huskies' offense a bit. But I feel like in the end, Washington does just enough to win it compared to Utah. So I'm going to go Washington. I'll go with a 28-24 win. I think it's going to be really close.
Yeah, it might even be like you said, like the Oregon game where it's late scores at the end to really put them over the top. Shout out to my homie Sean Freeman. He just posted he's working the USF game this weekend. He'll be camera operating, so that's cool as hell to see. Me and him went to St. Pete College back in the day in the digital media program. So, hey, the digital media program works. He's working huge games. He's always working Lightning games, Tampa Bay Ray games, Bucks games. I see him Orlando Magic games. And I'm working in Hollywood. So clearly that program worked and, got our foots in the doors to huge jobs. So shout out to him. So next game this is a big game. Tennessee, Missouri. I'm telling you right now, what's crazy is this Tennessee team has a legitimate shot at getting into the playoff. I've seen people talk about it and Vol fans talking about it. It seems crazy, but it's actually not that crazy in the long run. But because they already have 2 losses, but it's if they could beat Alabama in a neutral site game in Atlanta, that would give them the opportunity to potentially be there because they would have to beat Georgia next week as well. So it's definitely a very outside shot, but it is in the realm of possibility, very small realm, but just pointing that out. But with this game, I don't know. I like Missouri in it, but I think Tennessee can win this game. If their offense can come to play, I think they have a shot. They scored 20 points in the first half against Alabama and then got shut out in the second half. If they can have a full game against this Missouri team, they have a good shot. Can they stop Luther Burden and the Missouri offense and Schrader and Cook? Georgia barely did. Georgia made enough plays to win that game, but Missouri was right there with them to the very end. I think I'm torn in this game because I want Missouri to lose this game because then they would be on a 2-game losing streak going up into their game against Florida. I don't know. This is a really tough one because they're both 2-loss teams. This is a very evenly matched game. This is like a coin flip. I right now I'm just going to say Missouri because it's a home game for them in Columbia, and I think that's the only difference between this right now. Yeah, I'm going to say Missouri wins it. I'm going to say Missouri wins like real close. I'm going to say like maybe even because that kicker is good. Their field goal kicker. He's kicked it. He had that big kick against
Yeah,
Kansas
against
State.
K-State.
Was it like a 60-yarder or something like that?
Yeah, it was something ridiculous.
Yeah, so maybe it's going to come down to that again. So I'm going to say Missouri wins like 28-27. What do you got, Ian?
So for me in this one, when you look at the two teams, as the records are and the teams stat wise are very similar, I look at the competition they played, and for me, I feel like as great as Missouri has been, and it's such a good story, and I'm honestly happy for them that they've done so good this year. I feel like Tennessee has had the stronger schedule and has done more with that.
Yes.
Now, Missouri, they've
Yes,
played,
100%.
yeah, and Missouri has a very backloaded schedule. And the teams they play, I mean, they lost to LSU. They put up a good fight. Same thing with Georgia, but I feel like it's going to be the same thing. Tennessee, was in the game against Alabama, and honestly, they had a chance to win it if they didn't blow it in the second half. So for me, I feel like Tennessee finds a way to win this one. I think it's going to be close. I think Missouri is going to, keep it close, but I'm going to take the Volunteers winning this one. I'll go with let's go like 35-33 win for the Volunteers.
The only thing I would counter with that, I just don't think that Tennessee can score that much on this Missouri defense. That's the only thing I would say there.
I think it'll be within 2 points. I'll say that.
Yeah, but I agree with it. It's going to be close, but I just think that Missouri is going to be able to make enough plays to keep it close. Okay, and we're split on that, which we're usually not split on a lot of games. But okay, next couple of games we'll do these real quick. Oklahoma State, UCF. I just wanted this one on here more because of Oklahoma State. This is a very important game for them. They got to continue the trend. I think they will. I think UCF has been battered and bruised all year. They won last week, but that Cincinnati team is not very good. But I like Oklahoma State here to keep pace, to keep in the race for the Big 12. I'm going to say Oklahoma State wins. I'm going to say they win probably like 28-17. What do you got?
I agree, especially the rushing game with Gordon of Oklahoma State. That's a really tough one to stop, and I just don't see UCF doing that and slowing them down. So I'm gonna go Cowboys winning. I'll go like 27-14, similar score.
Okay, next one. These two teams are very close too, as well. West Virginia, Oklahoma. Can West Virginia get over a hump here where they've struggled against some better teams? Can they lost to Penn State earlier in the year? Can they get this win here? I don't think they do. I think Oklahoma comes back from their devastating losses the last 2 weeks, and I think Oklahoma wins this one. I'm going to say it's close. I'm going to say like a 32. Oh, both my lights went out. Good thing I have this other one. I'm going to say like West Virginia or Oklahoma wins like 32 to like 24. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Oklahoma winning this one. Defensively, West Virginia hasn't been as good, especially against really good offenses, which Oklahoma has. Might be a shootout, but I'm going to take the Sooners winning this one. I'll go with like a 38-20 win for Oklahoma.
Okay, last two, but this one's really important. Ole Miss, Georgia. I want to hear your thoughts first, and then I'll go.
So there's been the whole thing with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin is that there is a glass ceiling with him and with Ole Miss. And whatever the game is, when it's these like juggernaut teams, Bama, Georgia, those ones, it's for whatever reason he just can't get over that hump. And here's another chance to prove it. For whatever reason with this one, I just don't see Ole Miss has not proven to me that they can, as good as their offense is, can beat an elite defense. They did, when they beat LSU, defense isn't spectacular. all of their wins this year have been against very mediocre defenses when they light up the scoreboard. Their loss against Bama pretty much give them the playbook, contain Dart, make sure the middle of the passing lane is covered, and make sure, Jenkins doesn't have any lane. So pretty much win the middle of the field, you beat Ole Miss's offense. And that's what it's come down to. And I mean, we've seen it firsthand. Georgia is an absolute monster down the middle. So just defensively, I feel like Georgia can win that alone. And I feel like the offense is going to do enough. It's in, Sanford Stadium. It's a night game. It's going to be a very tough environment for Ole Miss. I think they'll put up points, but not nearly enough that they're used to. And I think Georgia wins this one. I'll go 28-20 Bulldogs.
This is by far the biggest game that Georgia has played all year. I think with what we saw against Missouri and against Auburn shows that this team is beatable. And I think Ole Miss is a team that is capable of beating this Bulldog team. Will they do it? That's another question. I think there needs to be a big game from Jackson Dart. I think Quinshon Judkins, he has to have a big game, like 100%. Like there's no doubt in my mind if he doesn't have 100 yards total for the day, receiving and rushing, then I find it hard to believe them winning this game. Georgia, on the other hand, looks like they might have Brock Bowers as of today. Seems like there's a possibility he could come back for this game. They looked really well on offense against Missouri, and Missouri is a much better defense than Ole Miss. Yeah, I think Georgia wins this one. I want to say that Ole Miss can put a scare into them, but I think Georgia wins this one. I'm going to say it's close, and maybe it's even like a late score type game. I'm going to say Georgia wins like 28-25. Okay, last one. Texas TCU. I'm only putting this one on because, TCU's kind of struggled, but Texas needs to keep winning to have the shot at being in the playoff and all the other goodness that comes with it, especially the Big 12 championship. So this is going to be a tough one. This is in it's in Fort Worth. I think Texas does win this one. It's going to be really close, though, like extremely close. I'm going to say Texas wins like 34-31. What do you got?
So all TCU's losses this year have been within one score, with the exception of the K-State game. And Texas has been skidding by, especially speaking of K-State, winning in overtime against Kansas State, winning by a touchdown against Houston, and then they lost against Oklahoma. For me, though, I'm going to take Texas, but again, I think it's close. I feel like Texas gets lucky and, they find a way to win. I think they have enough experience that, when it's less than a minute and it's tied or down by 1 point, they know how to get down the field. They know what plays to run. It's like a script at this point. So I feel like Texas finds a way to win. TCU definitely puts a scare in them. But I think Longhorns do just enough. I'll go like 37-34 Longhorns.
Nice. Okay. That is the show. You can reach us at haterradio.com. The socials are hater_radio for TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Threads. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. For YouTube, it is at Hater Radio. You can reach us on email, haterradio1@gmail.com. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yes, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at GGatorG.
Okay, so like, subscribe, comment on everything we do, follow, get the algorithm going, get us in your, mentions, do anything you can for us. We greatly appreciate it. Also, real quick, shout out to our sponsors, the Ship's Hold and the Galley in St. Pete, downtown St. Pete. Great places to eat and drink. That's my buddy owns the both those bars. So if you have a chance, downtown St. Pete on, I believe, 4th Street and Central, 4th Street and First Ave North. And so yeah, that's the show. Enjoy these games. There's a lot of really good games coming up this weekend, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. Take care.